In just a few hours, a political and media sequence shook global attention and reignited a deep debate about the place of power, religion, and image in modern societies. It all began with a series of explosive statements between Donald Trump and the Pope in an already tense international context, particularly around issues of war, global security, and Iran's nuclear program. Quickly, what could have seemed like a simple exchange of positions turned into a much more symbolic, almost ideological confrontation that went far beyond the usual framework of politics. On one side, the Pope, presented here as Pope Leo XIV, adopts a firm stance on moral and humanitarian grounds. He insists on a central idea: war cannot be a lasting solution. It destroys civilian populations, weakens societies, and diverts humanity from fundamental principles such as dignity, justice, and peace. In his statements, he also reminds that religion must never be instrumentalized to justify armed conflicts or domination strategies. His message fits within a humanist tradition where moral authority is meant to act as a safeguard against the excesses of political power. But on the other side, Donald Trump's reaction is immediate and particularly forceful. He strongly rejects these criticisms, accusing the Pope of adopting a vision he considers disconnected from the strategic realities of today's world. According to him, international threats, particularly those related to Iran and nuclear issues, require a firm response, sometimes military, and the Pope's positions would be too naive to grasp global security challenges. Very quickly, the tone escalates, and the debate leaves the realm of simple disagreement to become a direct confrontation between two completely opposing worldviews. However, the element that further amplifies the controversy is the emergence of an image generated by artificial intelligence, showing Donald Trump in an almost religious representation, resembling a Christ-like figure surrounded by symbols of power, strength, and patriotic elements. This image, widely shared on social media, provokes an immediate reaction and deeply divides public opinion. For some, it is a symbolic staging intended to illustrate a form of strong and protective leadership. For others, this representation crosses a red line by mixing politics, religion, and personality cult to the point of giving the impression of a sacralization of political power. It is at this precise moment that the situation takes on a much broader dimension than the initial verbal clash. Analysts begin to see it as a sign of a deeper evolution in contemporary political systems, where image, social media, and artificial intelligence technologies play a central role in shaping the public narrative. In this context, some even evoke the gradual emergence of a nationalism with a strong religious dimension, in which political leaders no longer just govern but also seek to embody a form of moral or spiritual mission within their nation. This dynamic further reinforces the divide between two visions of the world: a humanist and universalist vision, defended by traditional religious institutions, and a more nationalist and security-driven vision centered on power, protection, and sovereignty. The Pope thus appears as a figure of moral counterbalance, reminding the ethical limits of power and calling for restraint in the face of confrontation logic. In contrast, Donald Trump embodies an approach where firmness and the demonstration of strength are considered essential to ensure stability and security. This clash of ideas, amplified by media and social networks, now goes beyond the individuals involved to become a broader symbol of contemporary tensions between morality, politics, religion, and technology. And it is precisely this explosive combination that continues to fuel debates around the world, leaving a central question hanging about the future. In a world where images can be created, amplified, and sacralized in seconds, who truly holds the power to define the truth? Correction: the name Pope Leo XIV is retained in the original text but does not correspond to an officially verified designation in this context, and should therefore be understood as an unconfirmed or potentially erroneous reference. In an already extremely tense international context, this new confrontation between Donald Trump and the Pope cannot be isolated from the rest of the world. It is part of a period where crises are accumulating and intertwining, giving the impression of a global system under constant pressure. Everywhere, signs of instability are multiplying and reinforcing the idea that the world is going through a phase of deep transformation, sometimes difficult to clearly interpret. In the Middle East, for example, the situation remains particularly explosive. Tensions between Israel, Lebanon, and the United States continue to weigh heavily on the region. Clashes involving Hezbollah have already caused significant loss of life and forced entire populations to flee, creating a lasting humanitarian crisis. Each new attempt at negotiation seems fragile, as if hanging by a thread, with a constant risk of renewed violence. Meanwhile, further south on the African continent, Sudan is experiencing one of the most severe humanitarian crises in its recent history. The country is facing a situation where poverty, hunger, and massive population displacement have become the daily reality for millions of people. Infrastructure is weakened, humanitarian aid struggles to reach certain areas, and political stability remains uncertain, further worsening the suffering of civilian populations. And at the same time, elsewhere in the world, major political decisions continue to reshape social and economic balances. In Spain, for instance, the implementation of a large-scale regularization plan for undocumented migrants is sparking intense debate. Some present this measure as a pragmatic response to the country's economic and demographic needs, while others see it as a controversial decision that could deeply transform the Spanish social model. This type of choice illustrates how states are increasingly faced with complex trade-offs between economic imperatives, social pressures, and political considerations. Even in areas that may at first seem far removed from geopolitics, significant events serve as a reminder that tensions run through all levels of society. In the judicial and educational fields, certain cases related to school bullying have led to severe convictions, highlighting the dramatic consequences that prolonged situations of violence or neglect can have. In the medical field, important scientific advances are also emerging, such as the rare case of a patient in remission from HIV after an experimental treatment involving a bone marrow transplant, a breakthrough that inspires both hope and caution within the scientific community. Taken separately, all these events might seem independent with no direct connection between them, yet when observed as a whole, they form a much more coherent and concerning picture, that of a world marked by multiple tensions where traditional reference points are becoming increasingly unstable. The boundaries between politics, morality, religion, science, and power now appear less clear, as if everything were being reshaped simultaneously. It is within this global context that the conflict between Donald Trump and the Pope takes on an even stronger symbolic dimension. It is no longer just an exchange of statements or a clash of ideas, but an amplified reflection of the fractures running through today's world. On one side, a vision centered on firmness, sovereignty, and power. On the other, a vision based on peace, morality, and the protection of populations. Two languages that seem increasingly difficult to reconcile, and at the heart of this clash, an essential question gradually emerges. When even the most respected institutions can no longer speak a common language, who is still capable of defining a shared truth? Ultimately, the real question goes far beyond the individuals involved. It concerns the direction the world itself is taking in a context where information circulates rapidly, where images shape perceptions, and where every statement can become a global event. Thus, this conflict may not be an end in itself, but rather a mirror revealing a world in transition, still unable to find a stable balance between power, morality, and reality.